Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is I'll Call You Back, True Blue Unedited, with your host,
Izzy Martinez.
and Cachita Lopez, here courtesy of CLR 154 on your Sirius XM dial. It is a pleasure to be here with you guys today. We have a very interesting topic for you. We're going to be talking about militias, the white militia and the black militia, and what these militias are planning to do. Izzy, why don't you give us a little intro on that?
Well, we all know that there are groups call themselves militias that are out there in the under the Black Lives Matter umbrella. At least that's how I see it. And they're claiming they're exercising their Second Amendment right. And I believe 100% in the Second Amendment. But what I'm also concerned about is what is coming after that. No, and the reason I say that is because if you don't think that there are white militias getting ready to confront people such as the Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and those black militias, I got news for you. I believe that there's a group or groups, there's not just one group, and at one point they're coming out, and that is very concerning for this country. Extremely concerning.
We've talked about that on different shows. What that's going to, that type of action, what that's gonna bring, and I have to interrupt you and ite la contraria for a moment, because the black militia, as it's being called, the NFAC, has actually stated that they are not affiliated with Black Lives Matter nor the new Black Panther movement. So a lot of people make that assumption, but they are an entity in themselves that are there to stand up against the mistreatment of black people and people of color, not just Black Lives Matter or not just police brutality.
And how do they intend on doing that?
The same way the white militias do, I suppose.
Well, the white militia is only defending this country and defending the rights of the law-abiding citizens of this country as well, because I think they also have the right to do that.
Of course, but the black militia is not, they have not been causing any sort of problems. They've been, their manifestations, their protests, or the times that they've come out has been organized. They've been peaceful protests. They haven't attacked anyone.
Well, they did have one accidental discharge,
Well,
which they labeled an accident. It was just an accident, and about 2 or 3 people got shot. So they didn't do that intentionally. I don't think that was an intentional incident. However,
and it affected their people. It wasn't
my
an attack
concern
towards the whites.
my concern with the militias is the same concern that I have with Antifa and Black Lives Matter, which is you have a lot of young people out there, and those are the ones that are easy to convince to go out and do all this stuff. The older folks, like myself, you're not going to convince me to go do something that I don't want to do, and I know deep down in my heart that it's incorrect and it's wrong. I'm not going to do it. However, my biggest concern is a confrontation between those two groups, because I'm here to tell you,
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of military experience the black militia has, but I am pretty sure, based on there's a report that just came out that President Trump is going to label or consider both of them as terrorist groups. And
Which I think is super fair.
he's going to do the KKK and Antifa as terrorist groups.
I think that's super fair.
I think also what that's going to do is it's going to separate the rioters from the protesters.
Correct.
Because that's the way I see it. Because within those groups, there's people that go and they watch. They go home and they know it's wrong, and they don't agree with it, but they still go out there and they take. But they don't burn anything. They don't break anything. They don't steal anything. Because I still don't get what does breaking into a store and taking, electronics, clothing, and sports.
There, I see eye to eye with you there.
I don't get
I'm
it.
in agreement with you.
Because I really don't get it. The other thing is you burn your own neighborhoods, your own city. Now, what happens when?
Yeah, and nay, because there's a lot of these rioters that don't even live in these cities out there. They're just going to instigate and to cause.
Absolutely, that's another good issue.
That's another thing because
Yeah.
it's not just people burning their neighborhood.
Right.
There's folks that don't live there.
I agree.
And one of the instances, a couple weeks back, we were talking about that, about the young kid that shot and killed two people, injured a third at one of these protests
With the AR-15?
With the AR-15.
That was getting hit with the skateboards over his head?
Yes, correct.
I remember.
But remember, also, they're like, yeah, the kid defended himself, but granted, the kid was a minor with a weapon in a state where he doesn't even live. His mom literally drove him across state lines. It wasn't like, hey, I see a demonstration in my neighborhood and I want to go out and defend my neighborhood, my property. No, I'm going to cross state lines.
So the issue that I see is that he's a minor. That's the only issue I see. I'm going to tell you why. Because those militias come from everywhere. And they have the right to go to other cities and other states.
You have the right to do
to
that.
demonstrate.
You have the right
and
to
the
do
right
that.
to bear arms. So that kid, if he would have been an adult, a responsible adult, and decided to go do that, would that make a difference?
It would not make a difference, but I see it this way. If you criticize if you criticize Antifa, and if you criticize Black Lives Matter riots or whatever, and you say, well, they have the right to do this, I don't.
What is the difference between the militia and that kid?
There's nothing.
As far as the right to bear arms.
The
age.
The age.
That's it.
The age.
Because
he has a right to.
Let's say he was 6 months shy of 18. Okay? And now at 18, he becomes an adult. Would it make a difference 6 months later if the same scenario would have happened? Because I'm going to tell you.
I don't think people need to be crossing state lines to be starting shit, honestly.
So I agree with you 100%. So that goes for Antifa, Black Lives Matter.
It goes for everyone.
And
it goes for everyone.
And the militia. Because I'm here to tell you that the militia, they are very concerned.
But we're talking all the militia. We're not just talking the black militia. We're talking about the white militia too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But I'm here to tell you that each city and each state, calling militia or calling people that are concerned about this great nation and the Constitution of the United States, there's people all over the United States that are just fed up with all this violence and all this burning and killing police officers, because every day you put the news, there's a new officer that got hurt, got shot, and killed. And there's a lot of people that had nothing to do with law enforcement, but they are law-abiding citizens and they've had enough. So how far is that what's going to happen? How far is that going to go?
All right, let's add some fire to the flame. It's a shame that these police officers are being killed. These police officers signed up to protect and serve.
Not to die.
Not to die. Correct. But when you put on that uniform and you carry a weapon, a gun.
Right.
That's an obvious option.
Sure.
It's not like, it's impossible that the police. No, you're putting your life at risk. You're putting yourself at risk.
You should know you're putting your life.
You're putting yourself on the front line.
But see, the criminal,
you're not
when the
selling
criminal makes a
flowers.
decision that he's going to go commit a crime and he straps on a gun to his waistline.
He knows that he can die.
He should know that he can go to jail or die. The only problem is, nowadays, if he dies, he's a hero. He is a hero.
No.
And the cop is a bad guy because he shot the poor kid and the poor man and the poor woman.
Stop. There are things. No.
If we're going to say that police officers should know that once they become cops, that could happen.
Of course that can happen.
No.
You're not going to be standing in the corner selling flowers. If you are a doctor, right? You know that you're going to be sacrificing a ridiculous amount of hours, that you're going to be pulling time from your family, that this is what you agree to do. I'm a singer. I agree to sing. I agree to have swollen feet from being in high heels. And I agree to that because that comes with the territory. If you are a police officer, the potential of being shot comes with the territory.
Not the way that they're being shot.
You're not
the way
a
that they're
chef.
being shot.
You're not working in a
No.
hotel.
No. Their hands are being tied. and they have to stand there in a police line and let these people verbally abuse them and physically abuse them, and they're supposed to take it.
Then what if
they're
I say,
supposed to sit there and go,
if you sit
okay,
down,
if I act, I'm going to be indicted, I'm going to be fired, and I'm going to have to move from my
so
neighborhood.
For hundreds of years, blacks have been verbally abused, physically abused, oppressed, and everything. Oh, it's okay.
Listen, that violin needs to go away. That's a big violin, playing that little fine-tuned violin. It has to go away. How long are you going to live on that? That years ago, and it's been going on for all these years, and it's the same thing that happens with Hispanics in this country. It's happened before, and it's happened with other groups. And you don't see those people getting up every morning going, I'm being discriminated against. Oh, somebody's picking on me. Somebody's picking on me. It's the same concept as in school. In school, you went to school. You have somebody bullying you and somebody picking on you. You had a choice. You go tell the teacher. You go tell the principal. And if not, you grab a chair and you put it over the guy's head, and he would stop calling you names. And that's the end of it.
That's it.
But you don't continuously live. That does not come from me. It comes from other non-law enforcement blacks that I talk to. And I have one in particular that put it, beautifully. He said, if I let that carry me for the rest of my life, I will not be able to live.
I don't think you have to carry it for the rest of your life, but you do have to give it some sort of presence. You have to acknowledge that that does exist and that it did exist because it's part of your history.
Okay.
If you don't know your history, you're doomed to
trying
repeat it.
They're trying to change history too now, because now the history that you and I learned in school, it's a totally different school.
No.
Oh, yes.
There we can talk a lot about that there, because how is it that in a country where you've had a group of people for over 400 years, you have a month dedicated to the history of this people for over 400 years that have been here, that have built this country.
Those are some old people if they're over 400 years.
All of the generations that we haven't been here, because our people have only been here for 60 years, the Cubans, right?
Well, a little bit more than 60, but yeah.
62, we haven't been here 400 years is what I'm saying.
No.
Blacks have been here for 400 years.
Right.
Why is it that there's so much of history that's not included? That's part of American history, because they are part of America and they're part of American history, the same as the Mexicans.
I studied civil rights. I studied civil rights when I was in school. At least the school that I went to.
But prior to civil rights, slavery, everything that happened, the massacres that have happened.
Okay.
That's not mentioned in school.
Is it the only group that's gone through that? Is it the only group?
It's not the only group, but
so
it's
why
a
do you
very
see the
large
other
portion
groups
of
just letting it go and moving on? Because obviously, the 1940s and the 1950s in the United States is not the same as in 2020. Because now,
granted, but we don't let shit go either.
No, well,
you teach your kids about your history, about why you left your country.
Absolutely.
Everything that you have expressed, and you expect for your kids to process that information and also be on the side that you're on.
Well, what I
yes
explain,
or no?
Yes, but what I explain to my kids, is why communism and socialism doesn't work, because I lived it. I was there. I saw it with my own two eyes. But I don't teach them how to hate every Cuban on that island. They know who to hate, and the people that they hate are two individuals that ran that country or that island for many, many years, and that's the bottom line. But in this case, if you think about it, they need to drop the black and white issue, and I'm going to tell you why. They're killing as many black cops as they are white. So is it a black and white issue, or is it an authority issue?
Here's the issue. No,
you wear a uniform. You wear a uniform. You're a target. Then it's not a black and white issue.
But you're also assuming that the people that are being attacked, or rather, the people that are attacking, are the protesters, and they're not the protesters. These are the people paid to instigate, the Antifas.
That we agree.
Okay,
it's not agree.
Everyone, because
Absolutely.
I've sat down with a plethora of people to talk about Black Lives Matter. Why? I'm not black, but I'm interested in knowing the things that affect my friends, people of my community, people of my age, and my circle is a very diverse circle. And I can honestly say when I'm ignorant to a topic, and if I don't know about this topic, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to say, hey, I may not agree with you, But maybe why don't you try to explain this to me to see if maybe I can at least see where you're coming from, you know? And it's true. The same amount of time that the Cubans have been in exile in this country, it's the same amount of time that I mean, in 1965 was when segregation supposedly ended. 1965, which was 6 years after the triumph of the revolution, and it's still affecting us. So how are you going to tell me?
Still affecting us in what way?
Well, at least for me. I was brought up in a household where we talked about Cuba all the time.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. But what they would teach you is why socialism and communism didn't work. That's what they would teach you.
So the blacks have the right to say,
hate every single person in Cuba.
Oh, no. But my mom taught me every morning. She would say, hey, and remember, the best communist is a dead communist.
Absolutely. And I still say it. I still say it.
Every day.
See, this is the way I see it. I was born under a flag in a different country. And my parents made a decision to come to this country and be law-abiding citizens and defend this country to the last drop of blood. That was 51 years ago. And I still feel the same way. I will defend this nation under this Constitution, not under the Constitution that they want to go ahead and implement. I will defend this country to my last drop of blood. And I'm 57. I'm not a young kid anymore. Was in the police department for 30 years. And trust me when I tell you, we were very well trained. And I'm going to tell you right now, I will not allow, and I will do everything in my power to not let socialism and communism affect this country. Now, on that note, if you could think back in the 1950s, okay, who did they target to try to get the socialism and communism into this country? Do you remember?
The blacks.
No.
No. Who?
The hippies. The so-called hippies. The LSD era and marijuana and all that other stuff that they were doing. Why? Easy target. I'm not saying that blacks are easy target, but they need to wake up, because the same people that they are trying to say are trying to harm them, they are trying to harm them. Actually, they're trying to instigate them for them to do the dirty work. And like I said before in another program, they walk away and they leave them in the rubble, sitting in the rubble, burning their cities down and doing all that other stuff. And I do agree, a lot of the people burning, looting, and so on and so forth do come from other areas.
From other areas, and they're from other
That's
groups.
why I also suspect that this country, right now, whether you believe it or not, this country, right now, is looking into grouping all these individuals and charging them all as possibly one, which is racketeering. And I cannot wait till they announce that, and actually not announce it, do it. I wanted you to do it.
After the protest started with the death of George Floyd, in Miami, we had 1 day of rioting. Recall that? 1 day of rioting where the police car was set on
It was
fire.
more than 1 day, but yes, it was quickly extinguished.
It was quickly extinguished. It was 1 day of actual riots. We didn't have a week worth of riots. Or
about 3 or 4 days. We'll go ahead.
Fine. You know what's cool? After the FBI investigated and they did what they needed to do, there wasn't one black person that was arrested for that.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
It was Venezuelans and Cubans.
Well,
34 Venezuelans and Cubans
yes,
were the
of
ones
course.
that were arrested for instigating that and for starting those riots.
So who do you think those Cubans and Venezuelans, who are technically are supposed to hate socialism and communism, and those are the
estamos rodeados de infiltrados. We know
absolutely.
that.
We got people from
Everywhere.
Well, you got people from Venezuela and Cuba, and many others that are here just to leech off this country and take every penny they have right back to the communist country. That's not a secret, and those are the ones that are getting. But if the blacks realize that they're being used by the whites, like the ones that are being arrested, that is the day they will succeed. Separate yourselves from the rioters. Become protesters. And there's nothing wrong with protesting. And on that note, we'll be right back.
Yeah, we got to continue this.
Absolutely.
Mi mujer no se levanta de la cama sin 2 cafés. Hechos por mí, por supuesto. Le pregunté, ¿cuál es de la casa el mejor café? Y me dijo, sinceramente, Cachita. Pruébenlo. Y después me dice, salud, con Cachita. Hay ropa bonita aquí.
Señor, me hace el favor,
Tony, ¿con qué?
¡Alejo!
¡Tú en una tienda de ropa de mujeres!
Bueno, porque estoy comprándole a una dama para hacerle un regalo.
Ay, qué casualidad. Yo también estoy tratando de comprarle a una dama para ver si me dice que sí, porque cuando hay ropa buena no hay que se resista a decirte que no.
Bueno, pues tú sabes que yo nunca me imaginé que aquí en el medio de Default me iba a encontrar con Alejo.
No es default, es hollarse.
Hollarse está en Default.
Usted me desfolca, pero es hollar. ¡Oh, ya sé! ¡En default!
¿En Default?
¿De verdad que sí?
¿Hollarse?
¡En default!
Señorita, ¿usted me ayuda?
Te ayuda a lo que está más perdido. Hollarse. No hay más nada.
¡Ay! ¿Y eso qué fue? ¡Ay, me dieron por detrás! ¡Ay, no, espérate un momento! Me voy a ver ahora. ¡Ay! ¡Ay, qué mala suerte! ¡Ay! ¿Y yo dónde estoy? ¿Esto es el paraíso?
No, estás en Your Care Health Network.
Avanza con el pie derecho con Your Care Health Network.
Aquí no le cambiamos su suerte, pero resolvemos todos los problemas de su accidente.
Accidentado, recompensado.
¡La martelo aquí!
¡Ey!
¡Ay, qué sorpresa!
Y me sorprendiste tú a mí porque yo estaba buscando un regalo para ti, ya que me dijiste que te gustaban mucho las pipas.
Sí,
Adivina cuál te quiero regalar.
¿Cuál me quieres
El
regalar?
del pollito.
¡Oh, qué tierno!
Le quiero regalar el del pollito. Porque se parece a él. Mírale el piquito.
¡Oh, qué chulo!
Como ese piquito que tienes ahí.
Señor, esta es la tienda donde compran los artistas, los deportistas y tú que eres VIP también. Fog Nation. ¿Lo digo
Con
bien?
G. Fog.
Ahí está. Mira la careta esa. Uy.
Esas son para ahorita, para la cuarentena, para la pandemia. ¿Quieres una? ¿Quieres ponerte una?
Me vendría bien esa cara. Mira, ve, ya empezó
Con
a
esa
tirarme.
cara le vendría bien una de esas. Él mismo lo dijo. Él mismo lo dijo.
Este es mi Rolex. Y aquí en Grimán Joyería le subimos el precio a tu Rolex con un bisel de brillantes.
Entonces estamos enseñando los 3 biseles diferentes, biseles de $7,000, $3,000 y $2,500 con la esfera de diamante, que ya cuando tú sumas todo eso más el reloj, estamos hablando ya casi $29,000. Por ejemplo, este mismo reloj puede costar ahora mismo, vamos a decir, $7,500. Si le ponemos un bisel como este que tenemos aquí en mis manos, estamos hablando ya de $11,500. Esto es un reloj 36 milímetros, si le ponemos este bisel ya estamos hablando 40 milímetros.
Wow. Grimán Joyería. Lo demás es bobería.
Ay, Dayami, si yo te estaba buscando en mi vida. Me dijeron que tú eres la mejor para cotizarme un seguro para mi carro.
Claro que sí, aquí en Diamond Insurance te vamos a hacer una cotización que se ajuste a tu bolsillo y a tus necesidades de seguro.
Ay, mi vida, y con lo caro que están los seguros en la Florida.
Han subido, pero un poquito, pero no te preocupes, nosotros aquí tenemos muchos años trabajando todo el estado con muchas compañías.
Ay, eso es lo que yo necesito. ¿Y qué tengo que hacer? ¿Cómo compro mi póliza?
Nada, con una simple llamada, un mensaje de texto, un email, cotizamos tu póliza completamente gratis y en minutos, porque somos la manera más fácil para asegurarte.
Dayami, aquí, entre tú y yo. ¿Tú sí me vas a contestar?
Claro que sí, nosotros siempre contestamos.
Ay, ¿verdad que un diamante es un diamante? Con Diamond Insurance me siento asegurado.
¿Segura? ¿Segura que sí?
Una flor en la ocasión especial
puede hacer la diferencia.
Bueno, cuando las personas vienen a una floristería, tienen múltiples opciones para una persona que está en un hospital, para una persona que ha fallecido, conquistar a una mujer, disculparnos.
Si usted se quiere disculpar porque metió la pata la semana pasada, venga aquí a Cerezo Flower. Ya sabes, 1721 Southwest, 32 Avenida, marca el teléfono 786-326-4412. Haz la diferencia con la persona que tú amas. Una flor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is I'll Call You Back, True Blue Unedited with Izzy Martinez and Cachita Lopez here, courtesy of Cachita Latina Radio, 154 on your Sirius XM dial. It is a pleasure to be here with you. And we were touching up on a very interesting subject. The fact that a lot of these rioters are not
I like it.
From their towns.
You call them rioters.
Yes.
Because you should call them protesters.
No.
Okay.
Hold on.
All right, no.
They are protesters that are there for the right cause. Okay?
Absolutely.
There are people that are still there for the right cause.
Have you noticed you don't see them? That's because the media is only interested in the rioters.
The same way that the media is only interested in the bad cops.
Correct.
Okay, I can
All right.
I can be unbiased.
So, as long
I can
as
say
we get that out of the way.
That's fine.
That's
fine. And there are good cops, and there are still good protesters.
Absolutely.
And,
I agree.
The same way that there are bad cops and that there are rioters.
Yes.
Okay? Lo cortés no quita lo valiente. Okay? But we were talking about how a lot of these organizations are funded by certain politicians, certain people with other sorts of interests, and are taking advantage of the masses. And perhaps the emotion that these people are feeling, because I want to say, like you say, that the majority of people are good.
Sure.
The majority of people are good.
That's exactly correct.
They just are being veered in the wrong direction.
Correct.
So tell me about this.
Well, in big investigations, we always said, follow the money.
Okay.
Follow the money trail, and it's going to take you to whoever it is that you're looking at. And this is no different. And they need to find out who is funding the rioters, not the protesters. The protesters usually are not funded by anybody. They do it from their heart, from their beliefs. But the rioters, who is funding these groups? And going back to other programs where we discuss politicians, is we think we know some politicians, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we think a politician does a certain thing, and later on we find out that politician did totally the opposite. And I'll give you an example here locally in Miami-Dade County. We found out that some of the politicians who the police always endorsed, and we love them, and the PBA, Police Benevolent Association, and will endorse them, and hugs and kisses and photographs for the Miami Herald. Well, now we found out that some of these politicians are in for defunding the police. Now, my biggest issue is those are the ones that, if the dog is barking next door, are the first ones to call for the police.
Hold on. You do know that people are creating this big stink about defunding the police, but you do know that everything else has been defunded, right?
Everything else is in what?
The school board, teachers, salaries. There so many things have been defunded for years, and we're just expected to make do.
Correct.
And particularly with education.
Oh, I agree.
Education is what creates that foundation for the next generation.
And fire? What about
and fire
the firemen?
Too. You know?
Teachers, police, and fire, which are the most, you need them like you need to breathe. And you have people still talking about defunding some of these groups. That's ridiculous. What they should do is provide more money and more resources to these police departments, fire departments,
Agreed.
and definitely the school board.
Agreed.
And Now, the only difference is, remember, police, there's a difference between the police and the teachers. Two different issues. Should have the same outcome, but there's two different issues. Because police is high risk. Teachers is not high risk.
Teachers,
Firefighters is high risk.
granted, but teachers are the ones that
I totally agree. I
Right.
totally agree. It should have the same outcome. There's no reasons why teachers and school board personnel are being messed with like that. There's no reason. We'll see what happens also is I remember now parents in 2020, because this is 2020, and I tease my kids about this all the time, and I tell them, you know, it's 2020, anything goes, and everything's fine, and so on and so forth. Nothing to worry about. You got to accept everything, and you have to just play along with the game, which I don't. But now think about this. The teachers are expected to do what the parents should be doing. And the police is supposed to do the same thing.
yeah.
Yeah, you arrest a minor and you take him to the parent. And back in the day, the parent would not hesitate. As soon as you
To
took the
discipline their
handcuffs
child.
off and relinquished the kid to the parent, they would take off the handcuffs and immediately the ass beating would start. And especially in the Cuban community, because I know. And
Let's
what-
sidebar for a second.
but let me tell you 2020. Let me tell you the difference between 2020. You take the handcuffs off, and the first thing out of the parent's mouth is, did they hurt you? Did they read you your rights? Were they rude to you? And do you know if you were committing that type of, you were in a stolen car, but you weren't the driver, right? Immediately. And you're standing there in front of them, because they will not hesitate to do it in front of you, and you're going, are you serious? So those are the little timeout kids that we have nowadays that were placed in timeouts, and they would go into their room, and their parents
There's
didn't know what was
a huge
inside
sense
the
of
room.
entitlement, yeah.
Of course.
There's a huge sense of entitlement.
Not in my house.
I remember, I'm going to sidebar for a second. I have a friend of mine, single mom, has 4 kids, right? She moves from Puerto Rico to the United States, and her eldest son, you know, at that age when they're 13, 14, they know more than you will
Yes.
ever know. Especially if it's a boy, oh my God, forget it. You know, he's the man. 'Cause
Yeah, of
he's,
course.
You know, because he's feeling like he's a little man now. So his mother disciplined him. She spanked him because he disrespected her. He cursed at her or something, and she just, pow! Just one
One
time.
good smack.
Just one good smack. He called the cops on his mom. Right? Pero poor kid, he didn't realize he was in Miami. He really did not realize that he was in Miami.
A Cuban cop shows up.
2.
Exactly.
2. So when they get there, what's the problem? Da 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 da. So the kid says, no, because my mom hit me. My mom's being abusive. And the police officer asks, in front of the kid, asks his mother, what's going on? Well, you know, we've been here for a few months. We just moved here from Puerto Rico. He's been skipping school. I reprimanded him about it. Then he disrespected me and he cursed at me. So I slapped him. I'm not going to lie. I slapped him.
Okay.
And if he curses at me again, I will slap him again.
I am sure.
Normal. And the police officer looks at him, pulls him over and says, come here. Did you really curse at your mother? He goes, no, but she has no right to hit me. What? Did you really curse at your mother? Yeah, but she has no right to hit me because I know my rights and this is her. The police officer turns around and says, ma'am, can you please teach your son that you have the right to beat him because you are the one who
Exactly.
brought him into this world and he has no one to disrespect you?
One thing is abuse, and the other,
The police officer literally turned around and she goes, en serio? He goes, yeah, he's going to learn today. He's going to
Absolutely.
learn today. So she got a belt and she hit him twice. You know, he's like, I can't believe this. This is abuse. And the police officer says, I see nothing. I have no idea what you're talking
turned around
about.
and walked away.
Quite literally.
Well, what happens is you do it now.
And he learned.
Yeah, you do that today, and what happens is mommy turns around and tells a story to somebody and says, this is what happened. They tell you should get an attorney. The officers can't do that. They can turn around and just walk away and let you do whatever you want to do because you might have killed the poor kid and all that so on and so. Exactly. And that's what we got. The officers put up with that all the time. See, discretion. There is no more discretion. Now we got the cameras, which I agree on the cameras for some things, and I disagree for others. What I'm concerned about is number one, officer safety. That you're more concentrated on acting with the camera on, and we already discussed this, than anything else. But the problem is that there's no discretion. You used to stop somebody that was speeding, stop them and say, "You know why I stopped you?" And the person says, "Yes, I was speeding. I wasn't thinking. I'm terribly sorry. Here's my driver's license, registration." Most of the time, you do a check and go, "Do me a favor, slow down and take off." Now, you cut that person a break, and all of a sudden, you might have some supervisor evaluating the day's activity on your camera, which they do. And all of a sudden, the supervisor comes over and says, "Oh, what did you cut that person a break? Was it somebody you knew, or was it a family member or something?" You know what? And all of a sudden, there's no discretion. I stop you, you're getting a ticket. Who's the bad guy? Who's the bad guy now?
You for committing the crime.
Exactly.
Hey, it happened to me. I ran a stop sign. I was eating shit. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh, I rolled through the stop sign. I didn't stop. I saw no one was coming. I just went, and I turned, and I didn't see the police officer on his motorcycle. It pulls me over, and he goes, "You know why I pulled you over?" I go, "Yeah, because I did a rolling stop." He goes, "You never stopped. It was not a rolling stop because you never stopped.
You just didn't roll."
You just rolled. I said, "All right, officer." So I give him my license. I give him the registration of the car. He comes back. He goes, "I have to give you a ticket." I go, "You're doing your job." He goes, "Stop next time. Don't roll. Just stop." He was the nicest police officer.
It's not what you say. It's the way you say it.
It was super nice.
That's the bottom line.
I've never, honestly, I've had maybe one or two encounters with police officers that maybe had a bad day or had some sort of chip on their shoulder. I've been blessed where I generally abide by the law, so I don't really get pulled over for anything.
We have bad days.
Because you're human.
Yeah.
And you can have bad days. But I think it's also the way that you carry yourself. If you're pulled over, just be polite, be respectful.
Not generalizing, but we've lost that. We really have lost that. And a lot of people think, I don't have to give you my driver's license. I don't have to give you my insurance. And I don't have to. That's how it all starts. We all know how it's going to end. But that's how it all starts. The only good thing about the camera is that it captures that.
Yeah.
Then when you take action, hopefully there will be a supervisor that has a little bit of spine and that would back you up 100% and say, "Hey, listen, he did everything by the book. What do you want me to tell you?" And but nowadays that's just 2020 policing. You're supposed to act. You're supposed to do things that I'm afraid that in the long run, there's people going to get hurt. Because my main concern was officer safety. I didn't care about the ticket. I didn't care about anything else. I cared about officer safety. At the end of the night, I want to go home.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that. Oh, well, these cops, they do this and they do that. We're human. There's days that I didn't want to go to work. I had to go to work because I wasn't going to call in sick. And that's the day that I wasn't feeling well. I stayed away from everybody. And I go in and I did my own thing. But you need to respect officers just like officers need to respect the citizens. I had a rule. I treat people the way I want them to treat my family. And
that's fantastic. I had an encounter with a police officer.
You probably deserved it.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
No, I was the car was parked. I'm literally getting into the car with my sister. And the police officer pulls up a lady behind us. And she comes over, license and registration. We were parked. We were literally coming out of the store, getting into the vehicle. Okay. We didn't do anything. And my sister was very nervous because she just gets. And then today she works for the police, which is hilarious. But
great.
But she was like, no, she was super nervous. And I go, what are you nervous about? There's nothing wrong with the car. And the police officer's attitude was just, man, so uncalled for. And it was just, it was just too much. It was too much. And she goes, am I going to find something I don't want to find? But with just such an attitude. And I go, ma'am, that's what you have your computer for, right? And I stayed quiet in my seat. And she's like, we're going to get arrested. I go, arrested for what? We're sitting in. We're getting into the car.
Right.
But it looks like she had a bad day. I don't know what it was. She comes back and she tells me, why do you have a car in the state of Florida if you don't have a valid license in the state of Florida? I had just moved back down from college. And I go, because I can pay for it. It's not illegal for me to own a vehicle, especially a vehicle that's up to date, that has its insurance, that the tags up, everything's perfect.
Right. The driver's license is the only thing you have to get updated, but okay.
But I wasn't driving.
Oh.
I wasn't driving. My sister was driving.
But
I was a passenger.
Yeah, but you were in possession of the driver's license, which is used as an identification too. I understand all that. My thing was, I'm not going to tell you how tough I am. If it comes down to it, I'm going to show you how tough I am. But it had to come down to that. And who called the shot on that was you. If you respected me, I respected you. If you didn't respect me, and if you thought for 1 second you were going to hurt me, you were already hurt.
Okay, you're walking into that.
And
you're the one that.
And and I discussed this with you prior in a prior program. Now, lying, I'm not going to lie. I want to tell you exactly how it is. Because I told you about the incident when they told. The allegation is that you slapped them. I didn't slap them. I didn't. I swear to God, I didn't slap them. And the investigator on the other end is looking at me going, well, that's the allegation and there's witnesses. And I said that they're all lying. I punched them. I punched them 4 times. I didn't slap them once. I punched them 4 times. I was wrestling with the individual and I was trying to get him on the ground so I can handcuff him because he was going to jail. I don't remember if it was a drug or a gun case, and the person tried to take off on me. And when I tried to take him down, he put up a fight. Did I slap him? It's not. I'm telling you.
I punched him.
I punched him. I said those people are lying, and the investigator's looking at me going, "You must be nuts." Well, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to tell you the truth. Now you can suspend me and you can do whatever it is that you're going to do, and that's fine. But I'm not going to lie. I'm going to tell you. I punched him 4 times. I'll never forget that. And he's looking at me going, no, because he says you slapped him. No. Well, that's what happens nowadays. They start, well, I can't say that I punched him, and I can't say that I did a leg sweep and I took him down to the ground and he hit his nose and broke his nose on the ground. Why not? That's what happened, right? That's exactly what happened. If it didn't happen that way, then don't say it that way.
I think the transparency is so important. I think it is really.
I never got into it. In 30 years, went to internal affairs, and it was always, actually there were 3 females, 1 male, and 1 shooting. And it was always verbal. He was verbally abusive. And it wasn't verbally abusive, it was that they did not like the fact that I was telling them what to do. Exactly. But that's for her safety and my safety. If I tell you get down on the ground, it's not only for my safety, it's for your safety too. Because if you at any point get stupid, you're going to get hurt. Or I might end up getting hurt in that, and I don't want to get hurt. So if you want to get hurt, that's, you call the shots. A lot of people don't understand that. You call the shots of what is going to end this situation with police. And people just don't believe it and ignore it. That's just the way. Those are the times we are living right now, and that's what we have all the problems that we have. We have all these young kids, because notice, there's young kids out there that they think for 1 second that they can do whatever they want and say whatever they want and do whatever because they are protected by the same Constitution they're trying to tear down. Don't make sense. So how can you tell me that it's a black and white issue again when you're defending some of these Antifa white kids going out there instigating the whole thing, and you are being used to go out there and commit crimes? It doesn't make sense. You're not going to instigate me to do anything. I do whatever it is that I want, but that's my character. I've had that since I was born.
But again, like I said before, I think that it's a matter of these groups that take advantage of the emotion. It's a funny story. Let me give you a little bit of a history note that you may or may not know. There is a theory that people are much more willing to do things when they are in large groups than they would if they were alone. Like some of the rioters that have taken advantage and have gone into businesses like Target and stuff and stolen things would not necessarily do that on their own. Like if it were up to them to say, hey, I'm gonna go today and I'm gonna rob at a Target today, they're not gonna do that. But when they're within the masses, you know,
They act a certain way.
they act a certain.
Absolutely.
They act a
And that
certain
goes
way.
for police too. All right, let's make it fair. It goes for police too.
Okay.
But don't go away. We'll be right back with
Ladies and gentlemen, this is I'll Call You Back, True Blue Unedited with Izzy Martinez and Cachita Lopez here, courtesy of Cachita Latina Radio, CLR 154 on your Sirius XM dial. And there's a very, very cool story coming up now, which I know you may not know. Let's see. I'll see you guys back.
See you then.
Miami se despierta con una coladita y yo con mi café Cachita. Es mejor para compartir mi vida. Qué bueno es todo, qué malo es nada. Por eso yo prefiero café Cachita.
No hay ropa bonita aquí. Señor, me hace el favor. Me hace el favor.
Tony, ¿con qué?
¡Alejo!
Tú en una tienda de ropa de mujeres.
Bueno, porque estoy comprándole a una dama para hacerle un regalo.
Ay, qué casualidad. Yo también estoy tratando de comprarle a una dama para ver si me dice que sí, porque cuando hay ropa buena no hay quien se resista a decirte que no.
Bueno, pues tú sabes que yo nunca me imaginé que aquí en el medio de default me iba a encontrar con Alejo.
No es default, es hollarse.
Hollarse está en default.
Usted me desfolca, pero es hollar. ¡Oh, ya sé! ¡En default!
¿En default?
¿De verdad que sí?
¿Hollarse?
En default.
Señorita, ¿usted me ayuda?
Te ayuda a lo que está más pedido. Hollarse. No hay más nada.
¡Ay! ¿Y eso qué fue? ¡Ay, me dieron por detrás! ¡Ay, no, espérate un momento! ¡Me voy a ver ahora! ¡Ay! ¡Ay, qué mala suerte! ¡Ay! ¿Y yo dónde estoy? ¿Esto es el paraíso?
No, estás en Your Care Health Network.
Avanza con el pie derecho con Your Care Health Network.
Aquí no le cambiamos su suerte, pero resolvemos todos los problemas de su accidente.
Accidentado, recompensado.
La Martelo.
¡Ey!
¡Ay, qué sorpresa!
Y me sorprendiste tú a mí porque yo estaba buscando un regalo para ti, ya que me dijiste que te gustaban mucho las pipas.
Sí,
Adivina cuál te quiero regalar.
¿Cuál me quieres
El
regalar?
del pollito.
¡Oh, qué tierno!
Le quiero regalar el del pollito. Porque se parece a él. Mírale el piquito.
¡Oh, qué chulo!
Como ese piquito que tienes ahí.
Señor, esta es la tienda donde compran los artistas, los deportistas y tú que eres VIP también. Fog Nation. ¿Lo digo
Con
bien?
G. Fog.
Ahí está. Mira la careta esa. Uy.
Esas son para ahorita, para la cuarentena, para la pandemia. ¿Quieres una? ¿Quieres ponerte una?
Me vendría bien esa cara. Mira, ve, empezó
Con
a
esa
tirarme.
cara le vendría bien una de esas. Él mismo lo dijo. Él mismo lo dijo.
Este es mi Rolex. Y aquí en Grimán Joyería le subimos el precio a tu Rolex con un bisel de brillantes.
Aquí le estamos enseñando los tres biseles diferentes, biseles de $7,000, $3,000 y $2,500 con la esfera de diamante que ya, cuando tú sumas todo eso más el reloj, estamos hablando ya casi $29,000. Por ejemplo, este mismo reloj puede costar ahora mismo, vamos a decir, $7,500. Si le ponemos un bisel como este que tenemos aquí en mis manos, estamos hablando ya de $11,500. Esto es un reloj 36 milímetros, si le ponemos este bisel ya estamos hablando 40 milímetros.
Wow. Gris joyería. Lo demás es bobería.
Ay, Dayami, si yo te estaba buscando en mi vida. Me dijeron que tú eres la mejor para cotizarme un seguro para mi carro.
Claro que sí, aquí en Diamond Insurance te vamos a hacer una cotización que se ajuste a tu bolsillo y a tus necesidades de seguro.
Ay, mi vida, y con lo caro que están los seguros en la Florida.
Han subido, pero un poquito, pero no te preocupes, nosotros aquí tenemos muchos años trabajando todo el estado con muchas compañías.
Ay, eso es lo que yo necesito. ¿Y qué tengo que hacer? ¿Cómo compro mi póliza?
Nada, con una simple llamada, un mensaje de texto, un email, cotizamos tu póliza completamente gratis y en minutos, porque somos la manera más fácil para asegurarte.
Dayami, aquí, entre tú y yo. ¿Tú sí me vas a contestar?
Claro que sí, nosotros siempre contestamos.
Ay, ¿verdad que un diamante es un diamante? Con Diamond Insurance me siento asegurado.
¿Segura que sí?
Una flor en la ocasión especial puede hacer la diferencia.
Bueno, cuando las personas vienen a una floristería tienen múltiples opciones para una persona que está en un hospital, para una persona que ha fallecido, conquistar a una mujer, disculparnos.
Si usted se quiere disculpar porque metió la pata la semana pasada, venga aquí a Cerezo Flower. Ya sabes, 1721 Southwest, 32 Avenida, marca el teléfono 786-326-4412. Haz la diferencia con la persona que tú amas. Una flor.
Mi mujer no se levanta de la cama sin 2 cafés, hechos por mí, por supuesto. Le pregunté, ¿cuál es de la casa el mejor café? Y me dijo, sinceramente, Cachita. Pruébenlo. Y después me dice, salud, con Cachita.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is I'll Call You Back, True Blue Unedited with
Izzy Martinez
and Cachita Lopez here, courtesy of Cachita Latina Radio, 154 on your Sirius XM dial.
So you had a story you were going to tell me. Tell me about the story.
Okay. So
But
there's
it was a unique story, and I'm
this
dying
is
to listen
this
to
is a super cool story.
All right.
Because although it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to do with law enforcement, it does have to do with a theory on the way that masses react and how sometimes there are people that will do things in a group mentality when they are in this group situation that they normally wouldn't do if they were alone, solitary. Okay. So this is a super fun story. When Frank Sinatra started his career, it was very hard for him to get the right type of following, to create his name, to brand himself. So after not being signed and not having the success he wanted, he signs with this manager who was brilliant. He decides to do a concert in this theater, gives away the tickets. But he hired, I want to say it was about 20 women, and he had them seated, staggered throughout the theater. And their job, they were hired, was at certain moments to just start screaming and crying for him and acting like, oh my God, he is the biggest thing in the world. And these women, these 20 women, inside of a theater for over 2,000 people, created such hysteria, created such euphoria that over 100 women had to be taken to the hospital
That had never happened to me.
because they just got so wrapped up
Oh, Lord.
in this whole thing. And
Yep.
that is the same thing that happens in a lot of these riots, that happens in a lot of these mass situations.
Well, those are the ones that are getting paid.
Yes.
Remember.
Yes.
Because you have a lot of people that are going to jail and committing crimes, and they're not getting a penny out of it. Who's getting a penny is the one instigating right next to you that is trying to get you to do something that you know deep down inside that is wrong. And that sooner or later you're going to get caught, you're going to get hurt. And I'll give you the perfect example. In police work, you have a felony stop, and you have, let's say, 5 or 6 cars, police cars, with doing the takedown.
Right.
Well, let's say that it's a felony stop. They're all pointing guns at the car. There's 4 people in the car. They're trying to get the people out of the car, and they're trying to talk to the occupants of the car. Let's say for 1 second that one of the officers shoots 1 round towards the vehicle, and you have 7 cops pointing guns down to that car. Do you know how many cops are probably going to shoot at that car?
The other 7.
Exactly. Now, the reason that I think that happens is because you think and assume that that officer that shot the first shot
Had reason to.
saw something that you did not see and you need to address. Later on, you find out that maybe he had an accidental discharge, and here's a barrage of bullets going towards that vehicle. Now, is that criminal? Is that a criminal act on the police? Let's say the people in the car, they get hurt. Is that a criminal act on the officer's part?
I think it's not a premeditated crime, but that they should be held accountable for their mistakes. Absolutely.
In what way?
In what way? Have an investigation. See,
Investigation is going to be, because a lot of people say they need to investigate. They investigate everything. Police investigate everything.
Okay, well, an investigation needs to be taken, and they should be on suspension until they resolve that.
They're going to get suspended. That's regular.
Well, that needs to be done.
So at the end.
So what if? Okay.
It was unjustified. Let's say it was unjustified. What do you think should happen to those officers? They should be charged with a crime, or should they suspended for?
I think they should be suspended for a while, because if it is proven that it wasn't like a malicious thing, that it was actually an accident, they responded as they were supposed to respond according to protocol.
Right.
But there should be some sort of accountability.
Absolutely.
Because what if there's a child that's killed?
No, I agree. I agree with you 100%. But here's the problem: that's not what's taking place. What's taking place is, if that officer sits there and says, "I had an accidental discharge," immediately they say, that's a lie. That is not true at all. He's lying. He did it intentionally because he doesn't like blacks. He doesn't like whites. He doesn't like Asians. They're going to come up with a story that the cop is the villain in the story. And accidental discharges it does happen. It does happen. And I'm not saying that every case it happens that way, but it happens. And what happens is that it's okay for a civilian to do it, and it's an accidental discharge. But for a cop to do it, you're trained. You're trained to do what? Again, we're going back to the training.
You're trained. You're supposed to be trained to at least know how to work your weapon, no?
Well, look at the guy in the militia. Let's go back to that guy again. Accidental discharge, shot 3 people.
But he's not on a salary.
Oh, but
that the county pays.
Ah, so it's about the money.
It's
about the money.
Yes, you have to be held accountable.
Oh, okay. It's about the $60,000 you make a year.
It's $60,000, even if it's $2.
Well,
you're
actually,
being compensated.
My first paycheck was
$28,500
when I started.
Oh, fantastic.
$28,500. Yeah, it's a lot of money. But what happens is, you cannot sit there and say it's okay for a civilian to do that, but it's not okay for the officer to do that.
I'm not saying it's okay for anyone to do that.
Do you know what
I'm
the
saying
similarities
people
are?
need to be held
They're both
accountable.
human. They're
Granted,
both human.
but they have to be held accountable.
Absolutely.
And you're going to hold a police officer to a higher level of accountability than you're going to, hold a civilian to.
So how many times is there a case where the officer shoots somebody and they want a result the next day. That doesn't happen. There isn't a case.
Obviously.
Okay? So what happens is a lot of these police departments, they feel pressured and they start talking and talking. And that talking is what gets them in more trouble. Instead of just saying, we're not going to comment until
our investigation is complete.
It is complete. So
Agreed.
Here we are in the middle of the investigation.
But that
and
falls
we
on
have politicians.
that falls on your chief.
No, I'm going to tell you who it falls on. It falls on the politician that's next to the chief, calling the chief and telling the chief, we need to say something. We need to come up with an answer. We have to talk to these people. We cannot just wait and what?
And excuse me, but I'm sorry, but right there, the chief has, generally,
Absolutely.
if it's a lady, have her ovaries where she needs to have them, and if he's a guy, have his balls where he needs
Of
to have
course.
them. To say, you know what, I don't have a comment
They
until.
don't all do it.
Bueno.
Because they start panicking. Oh, I need my job, and the mayor or whoever it is, the commissioners, they're pressuring us into giving a statement, and we have to give a statement.
Don't.
Instead of sitting there and going, it's not going to happen. Now,
Even if your statement
if
is.
you've noticed how many chiefs of police throughout the United States sit there and go, we're not going to tell you, and we're not going to talk. And if you don't like it, that's too bad. When we come up with the investigation, we finalize the investigation, we will give you a full-blown statement. What happens now when you give the statement, if it's a statement that you don't want to hear, all of a sudden, there's corruption, code of silence, they're trying to hide something. And
There's a story. There's a story about that. There was a couple months ago, there was a series of lynchings throughout the United States, from California to Texas, and there was even one in New York, which brought up a lot of stuff, because you had what people assumed were lynchings. The majority of the cases ended up actually being suicides.
Yeah.
But taking into consideration the racial conflict in the nation, the time when it happened, the fact that generally, when you look at the stats, blacks are less likely to commit suicide, and even less likely to commit suicide by hanging. The highest suicide, the rate of the weapon used for the highest suicide are guns, people, shooting themselves.
Right.
But not hanging themselves from a tree.
Okay.
Literally. So there was this one case where the chief said exactly that. We will not be giving a statement until our investigation is complete.
Absolutely. That's a hot potato right there.
And a lot of people criticized it. They moved swiftly on the investigation. They did. But they had images, they captured, surveillance cameras or whatever. And the gentleman that had been homeless actually did commit suicide. He actually hung himself. He happened to be a black man.
But the easy way out is to say it was racism. It was somebody that didn't like blacks.
I was the first one. I was the first one. I said, "Oh my God, they're lynching people. Estos blancos, they're going to kill us all." Because
you as a civilian cannot do that, but me as an officer will not do that. I can't get to a place and go, "Oh, they burglarized a house," and let's say for whatever reason that year's stat shows that more blacks are burglarizing houses, and assume that a black person just burglarized that house. It'll be a cold day in hell before I do that. I would have never done that.
Well, let me tell you, that case struck such a chord with me. And then I saw there were additional cases.
Yeah.
There's 2 that are still under investigation of a young lady, and one of a Hispanic male. But I think it just happened at a time where everything was so heated.
Copycats.
And
there are copycats that follow those suicide trends too.
There was one Hispanic, and it's crazy because now everything's online. So there was a civilian in the area when he sees the police get
But
there.
see, that goes to my point that we discussed before. How can you sit there and say that's been going on in the United States of America for the past 400 years? Therefore, I think that those people that are hanging themselves that are black, are not committing suicide. It must be some racist group trying to kill.
I'm sorry, pero
How can you do that?
because that's the way normal people do not go hang themselves in trees. This is a normal thing. If you wake up in the morning and you go and you see a body hanging from a tree, your natural instinct isn't going to be this person committed suicide.
I'm going to tell you a little story.
That's not going to be my first reaction. Is going to be
story.
This person got lynched.
One of my
especially with everything around.
One of my ex-partner lives in an area where it's predominantly Dominican, blacks, Haitians. He lives there with his wife, and they're both police officers. And a few Halloweens ago, his wife decided to put a scarecrow, not a white scarecrow, not a black scarecrow, not an Asian scarecrow, a scarecrow, and hung the scarecrow from a tree. And
well, that was a dumb thing to do because scarecrows go in the ground. They don't go hanging from
no
damn tree.
No, but they did it for the kids, and they did it more like a ghost-looking thing or whatever.
Okay, a ghost.
But they have to. But the bottom line is they have the right to do it. And the lady in the corner of her house decided to call the police department, which I work for, and file a complaint and said she was calling the NAACP and Pulse and all these other black organizations to let them know that they were racist. The only problem is that my friend's wife was also a police officer. She is Dominican, dark-skinned. And I remember back in those days, we had a police director that told them, do not take that scarecrow down. Do not take it down. Well, my friend says, listen, I just want peace and quiet. I don't need this lady with cameras outside my house taking pictures. And it was not only that, she had decorated the whole outside of the house and stuff.
I think your friend just made a mistake.
I don't think so.
I do. Because number one, scarecrows
go
in the ground.
No, but it doesn't matter.
They go in the ground. You want to go steal una tela blanca ahí arriba.
No. What does a scarecrow have to do with 400 years of oppression? What does that have to do with it? How long is this going to go on? It's ridiculous.
I'm going to show up to the next show with like a T-shirt with a Che Guevara and be like, how long does this have to go on? Does this bother you?
Okay, but see, let me ask you this. It would bother me, but you have the right to do it.
But everyone doesn't think that way.
Well, you have to think that way because we're in the United States and people have the right to demonstrate, but not riot. Okay, they have the right to wear a T-shirt, okay, but not insult somebody or assault somebody. So there's a big difference. And it was funny because they took it down and that's it. She was happy. The lady was super happy. And she was insinuating that it was a black scarecrow. And it was far from being black. This thing did not look like anything like it.
I think
that's ridiculous. We've gotten to the point in this country that is ridiculous. That everybody has, I hurt our feelings. What about my feelings? Do you think I would wear a shirt, okay, with the head of the KKK, a picture of the KKK?
But that's a topic.
You know why I would not do it? You know why I would not do it? Not because I don't have the right. I have the right to wear it. But I wouldn't do it because it's going to hurt somebody.
Here's the thing, but that's a topic that I've talked about on many occasions. There's a lot of folk that are ignorant. There's a lot of people who are ignorant. There's a lot of people who will go out, let's say, in particular, with the Che Guevara T-shirt, right? Or something, a flag or whatever with the Che Guevara. And they don't know. They do not know that he was, an assassin.
No, they thought he was a Robin Hood, and he was far from being a Robin Hood.
But that's the image that has been sold. They have romanticized a Che Guevara.
Would you wear a T-shirt with Hitler on it?
I would not.
With Hitler?
I would not
and
wear
go down
anything.
to Miami Beach and walk Miami Beach with a Hitler shirt.
Shut up. You know where I was at? I was performing, and I see this guy. This guy actually shook me to my core because I'm performing at this place on the beach, and I see this guy walk in with this red T-shirt with the Che like this, and I'm in the middle of a song, and I was like, how is this like a normal thing, And I think it's a matter of ignorance.
It is ignorance.
I think it's a matter of ignorance. It's not a matter of being too politically correct or not politically correct.
And it has a lot to do with being the center of attention. Because they know that if they wear the shirt, they're going to be the center of attention. And those are so ignorant not to know who Che Guevara is or who Hitler was.
I
or
refuse to put
who the
anything.
KKK was. I mean, that's ridiculous.
I refuse to put anything on my body without knowing what it actually is.
Absolutely.
You know, unfortunately, there's a lot of folks that just go with the flow, and they see they're in a protest, in a riot, in a manifestation, and whatever the hell you want to call it.
I never went along with the flow. Never.
And they see this thing and they wear it and it's like a normal thing. I don't agree with that.
No.
I don't agree with that at all. I know how that could be offensive. I understand a scarecrow is a scarecrow. I also understand that at night when I am driving by a house, if I see, even if it's a scarecrow, if it's a whatever, and it's hanging from a tree and you're in a predominantly black neighborhood, you're going to be like, oye, que hola con esta talla.
But you have to know your neighbors, because if you find out that your neighbor is also
But
black,
still-
the one that's hanging the
but
thing,
still, you're going to say,
you're gonna call them racist
you're
too.
still going to say, que hola con esta talla.
She's ridiculous. That lady had nothing better to do.
Let
All the
me
neighbors,
tell you.
everybody, neighbors, even the director at that time, who happened to be a good friend of mine, great guy. He's no longer with us. But that director came up to him and said, "Do not take that scarecrow down."
She should
And
have.
guess what?
Okay.
The director was black. He says, "Do not do it."
That's fantastic that the director was black. But common sense. You know what? There's a lot of intelligence out there, but there's very little fucking common sense out there. Today. Very few people can captivate this. You hang something from your tree that looks like it has a body. Correct. From a tree.
In Halloween?
Whenever you
In
decide
Halloween, with the whole house decorated?
you're passing
You
by
have
a
way
house
too much
at,
time. You're
passing by at night. You're gonna be like, what
No, you
is
have
this?
way too much time. It was all lit up real pretty with all the Halloween stuff, and they had to take it down.
I'm
and
gonna
explain,
tell- I'm gonna
and
tell your
explain to the
friend-
kids, I had to take it down because the neighbor thought we were racist.
I'm
Are you
gonna-
serious?
No,
Come
I'm
on
gonna
now.
tell your
Come
friend to
on.
be like, hey, look up the
Come
history
on.
of scarecrows. Scarecrows go in the ground,
No.
not in the tree. You
No.
would put fake owls in the tree.
The day that
not
we start
scarecrows.
concentrating on real issues and not on those BS issues is the day that we're going to go move forward in this country on all issues. And that's the bottom line. And you know, it's just funny how some people react.
Let me tell you, any of my neighbors hangs like a body-looking thing from. I'm gonna be like, será que hola? Just, I'm just gonna say,
All
Vaya,
right.
it's not necessary.
But
It
let
really
me tell
is
you
not.
something. I've had enough of you today. I really have.
You're stuck with me the rest of the week.
So, take it away.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you so very much for joining us today on I'll Call You Back. True Blue Unedited with Izzy Martinez and Cachita Lopez on CLR 154 Sirius XM. Cachita Latina Radio in the house. Tune in tomorrow, same time, same place. To keep, I want to keep stressing out Izzy. Let's
You're pissing me off. See you then.
Mi mujer no se levanta de la cama sin 2 cafés. Hecho por mí, por supuesto.